Angeles lived close by in Pacific Palisades, but there was a large group. Michael Beckwith had started his church, Agape, on Olympic Boulevard. There was a large community of people that were working and living in that area, and it was right before the what we were told was the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I never thought the dawning of the age of Aquarius would take so long to unfold. I thought that once it dawned that we were looking at, all of the civilization falling apart and it being brand new within a really short period of time. So, and I attribute people being drawn to Santa Monica, California, because there's a opening between the dimensions there, and so there's like free spiritual energy. Now, it was a little bit too much for me to live there in that area and cope with that much energy, but I really do think I got a lot of sustenance out of that. And then, of course, there were the yogis that came to town, and they set up their tents, and they were on the Palisades or they were in Venice. So the area in Santa Monica was really filled with a lot of love and light workers. I mean, whether they were a guru or they were a spiritual teacher or they became a therapist. I mean, every single, when you look back at their story, they all started, around that time, and it was the late 70s all the way into the 80s in Santa Monica, and that was the pinpoint of where the spiritual renaissance started. And there were great speakers that came to town. And I remember one time I had a Saturday afternoon off, and I thought, well, I'll just stop in and I'll go and I'll listen to a speaker. It wasn't anything that I knew there was different spots, and you could just drop in, and it was just done on a love offering. And I went to this church, this little tiny church, and I stopped in, and every single person, I was dressed all in black, and every single person was dressed in white, and it was it was so
talk about standing out.
It was so apparent that I was not part of the community, and it was this really great Indian guru that shared this great story. And it's really kind of funny because it's a group of people, and they follow a guru, and the person does this message and holds this conversation about life. And one of the things he said you think you're doing something good, that you go to your closet and you take out your old clothes, and you donate them to the Goodwill, you donate them to the used clothing store. And he said, you haven't really, you really haven't done anything, you really haven't made a contribution. And it struck a chord with me, and I always thought, I go through and I get my stuff and I donate it, or I find somebody who says they want it, and I go, no, I'm not doing you a favor, you're doing me a favor by taking this away. But he was a great speaker, and I probably have never really forgotten that people think they're doing something good by making a donation, but really you're just cleaning your house and getting rid of stuff you don't need anymore. And it's more of a favor to you than it is to anybody else. At least that's how I see it myself. So,
I need to do some of that in my room. The rest of the house is pretty good, but my bedroom, I just grew out of it, considering I brought absolutely nothing down here from Kentucky. I left a whole house full of furniture, my motorcycle, a barn full of everything. And now here I am down here, and I swear I've got books galore. And my daughter keeps saying, Mom, you got to clear out your books. So.
Yeah, isn't that a funny thing? I have books too, but I don't. I find there's a very small amount of books that I actually use, and I have thousands of books. And it's just become kind of a strange thing, because I was reading somebody who was talking about feng shui, and it just says it just becomes a spot for stagnant energy. So I don't know, but I don't feel nourished without my books, so I like it. I really do. I'm with you on that one, books.
Yeah, they're my friends, and I've always had books, and I had two big bookshelves in Kentucky, but here in Florida, I've got just a little bookstore, bookstore. I had Treasure. I had a store. I did, but this one is just yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm on that phone that has to be in a certain place on the airwaves. But books are friends. And Rich, do you remember going to bookstores, or how did you get into the psychic biz with your wife? Or I know y'all worked at the Tango place, but Book for Two to Tango. But did you ever go to a psychic or think about marrying a psychic, or what was up with that?
No, that was the farthest. Yeah, that was the farthest thing for my mind to marry a psychic. That was.
Let's hear it. This is your night, Rich. Yours and Suzanne, so all my people can know more about who's Suzanne and Rich. And I've had two men call me tonight, so let's hear it. Spill the beans. Do the tea, as we say. What's the tea?
What's the question?
Did you ever go see a psychic before, or before you met Suzanne? The second part is, how did you wind up marrying a psychic? So let's go back in life for Rich Flynn from California. And did you ever believe in them? But, it came from the bookstore, because I used to go to these esoteric bookstores before I ever had a psychic reading. So what's your story?
No, to me, it came from radio. I'd listen to radio at night before I go to bed, and I'd listen to, the public radio stations. We got a really good one out here, KPFK, and they'd have a guy on, Roy of Hollywood, who would come on at 12 o'clock at night. And this is when I was teenagers, and I'd listen to these talks, and they'd have psychics on, and they'd have New Age conversations, and Alan Watts, and all these people would come on, and Krishnamurti. And I just was really fascinated by it. And then when I was teen or something like that, I heard about the Silva Mind Control. So I did that program. I signed up for that and did that, which was really great. And then I just started meeting different people and going to the Bodhi Tree and Hollywood. I think that's where I was at.
Right.
Or L.A. And then where did I meet a psychic at? I think I
remember the Bodhi Tree. I love the Bodhi Tree. I always smelled of incense. Do you remember the smells?
Yeah. Well, I remember that smell from the head shops when I was younger and go buy records. When I was 12, we'd go down and get a Beatle record and get our hippie posters, but that smell of the head shop, yeah. So that was all. That was a whole different world. Huh?
Didn't you have a story about you went to the psychic and she told you that you were a reincarnation and that you would meet and marry a woman? And who was that psychic you went to? I hadn't met you before I met you. Yeah. So
she said I was reincarnated Vincent van Gogh. And so that's when I was studying art. I kind of said, okay, I can go with that. And
your
as far
art
as
does
marrying,
look like that. Your art does look like that. It's weird.
He has that brush stroke. Yeah, that's interesting. Yes.
That's
and the colors too. It just looks like Van Gogh work. So how did you? So you did go to a psychic before you met Suzanne. So only one, or what's your story with psychics? Any more psychics?
I think it's just that one.
Tell the rest of the story.
Okay, so I'm going blank now. When
you were listening to the radio, Alan Watts,
he went to a psychic, and she told him that he was gonna marry a woman, and the woman would have 5 children. And when I met Rich, we were friends, and he wasn't dating anybody, and I was like, well, what about dating somebody? And he said, oh no, I would never date somebody who'd been married before or who had children. And I thought, well, I've got kids. That's the end of that story. So, I closed that door firmly. I was like, yep, that's it. But that was his story, is that he'd gone to a psychic and she told him that he was going to meet a woman and he was going to marry her, and she had children. So.
Yeah, so we did that. Well, we met at the restaurant. They had all different kinds of psychics coming and going, but we just befriended one another. And so at the end of the night, we'd go out and have a cigarette at the end of the night, just talk about our day, like who we saw, who we talked to, or because it was back in the day when the restaurant, the Cafe Tutu Tango in Orange, California, it was just happening every night. So it was just really, it was kind of like, it was like a Disneyland. It was just full and there was action going on. So we'd be friends and just talk at the end of the night, say goodbye, and that was it. And then the fickle finger of fate stepped in, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to be my roommate? I mean, I got someone moving out. Do you want to do it?" I go, "Sure." So I ended up living a mile away from Suzanne's house, and so she got me into secondhand store shopping. So we'd have to get dressed up every night to go into this place. So we'd go out in the afternoon and go to the Goodwill or Salvation Army and get clothes. And so, we're together during the afternoon and then evening when we're working. So, but we're just friends. Right. And everybody, and one of the things people kept telling me was, well, just get a girlfriend. You can just stay with her and, just kind of use her as a, just use her.
Oh, wow.
No, that was one of the theories. Well, just get a girlfriend. And, you can stay at her house, because I was living out of my car at that point.
Yeah, Gigolo was really big back then, right? So, I don't know when American Gigolo came out, but
yeah,
right,
Pretty Woman kind of stuff.
and that was the advice Rich got. It was like, well, just find a woman and be a gigolo and pursue your art at the restaurant, and it'll all work out. You don't, just go and there's plenty of people in California that's an acceptable solution. I think it's a form of prostitution, but I am a little bit moral. So anyway,
I remember seeing
so many
this.
People.
What's that?
Isn't that? I mean, to be honest with you, in the movies. Folks, I did have an office out there, but I didn't intermingle so much with the Californians. But that's a whole other story. But wasn't there a thing where people would move out there, have no money, no friends? They came to Hollywood to get rich and famous, and they'd be really like living out of the car or living on the street, but they'd wind up getting a restaurant job, or some of them would sing or work in comedy clubs just to wait tables so they could maybe get famous someday. Wasn't that the way?
That's the way it is today.
Yeah, so the Cafe Tutu Tango opened up a restaurant in Universal City Walk up there at Universal City Theme Park. And so everybody there was an actor, wannabe actor. Remember that?
You didn't get a drink. You got a performance of how they mixed a drink. It was just nuts. We were like, God, can we just get some service here? I believe it. You're waiting to be an actor. I get it. But Paramount owned Universal Studios, and then attached to Universal Studios was a walk. And I think they thought that these restaurants would be great and people would want to go and have a great meal, but it really wasn't a good idea because people come up to go to Universal Studios and they want to go see the shark, and they just want to get cheap food and then go back home. So it really was. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we all thought we were going to get famous up there. I did. I go, man, this is a great break, man. We're going to get famous up in Hollywood, Right. I thought that. I go, this is going to be cool. And then we had all these other artists out there, and let me tell you, people who are painting celebrity pictures, we don't look too favorably upon those people.
I'm sorry to laugh.
People are painting celebrity pictures, yeah. And so we had outside the restaurant. They had artists outside the restaurant too. So one night they had two artists doing dueling Jennifer. Who was that? Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, they're both trying to paint her pictures. So. Oh, it was unbelievable. There was so much competition, and oh my God, people just the worst came out in people.
Yeah, I worked in another situation up in. I worked on Sunset Strip at a boutique hotel called the Grafton on Sunset, and it was a great company. And they built this boutique hotel, and they built a psychic room, and they said that it was a feng shui balance thing, and it was a husband and wife that bought the hotel, and the wife's mother had been a psychic, and so she said the psychic energy would balance it. And so I worked in this